and he says hello. Johnny, welcome. Your turn. How are you, buddy? What's going on today?
Hey, Chris, how are you today, sir?
Hello, John. Nice to talk to you. What's happening?
I always agree with you. You're old school. I'm old school. I always agree with you. But I'm going to come at you from a different angle with your monologue. Here's a coach that at the end of the year in the ACC of all things has to go up against every big time school. He's trying to ascend to the next level, reach another level for his family, so forth and so on, like you did and like we all have, right? And in that moment, at the end of the season, the board of directors or whoever controls him isn't going to say, did you do this or did you do that? They're going to look at wins and losses.
Now, he just got the job, though, John. This is not a guy that's been here for 10 years coaching for his life. I mean, he just got the job. He's not going anywhere.
I didn't know that, Chris, and you're right. It's not acceptable. Don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to understand. At the end of the year, he's just trying to make the wins and losses look good so he can move on to the next level. I blame him for what he did. I don't blame his motive.
I know winning is important, but I mean, it's not like he's going anywhere. They just gave him a big deal. I thought it was a Bush move by Keatts. I really do. I think there's something you just don't do, and that was out of line. No problem with the timeout. That's part of it, but let him sit there and it's like icing a field goal kicker. You do that. But that I had an issue with, trying to get the crowd riled up. The coaches shouldn't be doing that. Glenn in Philly, and he's aboard. He says hello. Glenn, welcome. It's your turn. How are you today, pal? What do you have for me?
Hey, good afternoon, Chris. How's it going, buddy?
Hello there, Glenn. I'm doing well, thanks. What's up with you now?
So, the weather, man. I'm here in Philadelphia, so it's 65 right now. But tomorrow, by kickoff, so in 24 hours, the weather's going to be in the 20s by the time we kick off tomorrow. It's going to drop like a lead balloon. So I think, it's going to be windy, and listen, I know that people will come back and say, hey, well, Matt Ryan, he grew up in Philadelphia, in the suburbs. He went to school at Boston College. It's been a long time since he's been playing in the weather, for most of his career. I mean, he's in the Dome. He plays at least one road game in a Dome, plus he's Tampa and Carolina. So I think the weather is going to affect Atlanta. And you know what? But the Eagles defense, the key of the game is going to be that Eagles front seven. I mean, they're deep. They can rotate a lot of bodies in, and that's been their strength all year long. So at the end of the day, listen, Atlanta's got to come back. They come back from a tough game on the West Coast, coming back east. You got the weather. And listen, at the end of the day, it is tough to win road games in the NFL and then make it a playoff game. And listen, I know Foles is coming in a tough spot. The guy's a professional. Peterson's going to put him in a position to win. They're going to run the ball. And honestly, I think that this game, I may be a homer here, Chris. I'm seeing 24-16.
Well, I mean, you got the score right. Not a ton of points with the weather and everything else. I think a very tricky game to call. I think the Eagles, what they have going for them is partly what you just said. Weather, home field, travel for Atlanta. I think they got a huge chip on their shoulder. The Falcons will have a little motivation. They got a win under their belt. They got a little mojo and Foles. I mean, so take your pick which way you think they're going. Bob in New York, and he's aboard. He's on Mad Dog Unleashed. He says hello. Robert, good afternoon. How are you today?
Hey, Chris. How's it going? Listen, I just want to start by saying I'm buying Sirius stock since Mike left your buddy. That show's unlistenable, but that's
you got to give them a little chance to get their feet wet. But you can't putting three people on. We've gone through that 1,000 times. Anyway, what's on your thoughts here today? Fire away.
Big Minnesota fan. What do you think their chances are getting to the Super Bowl?
I think very good, Bob. I think the Vikings have a hell of a shot. I mean, I think they could get a little tight next week. I think this week they're going to be raring to go. Home field, first big postseason game in that new building. I think this week they're going to be flying, and I think it's a hard game for the Saints. I think next week it could be a little. I mean, they could get a little tight next week. And Minnesota always has a tendency to come up a little short in a big game. But I think next week, they could be a little nervous, especially if they play Atlanta. Because Atlanta then would have 2 wins under their belt. Atlanta's won there in the past in the postseason, 98. The franchise has won a championship game there. And, to be that close to host a game in your own Super Bowl building, you can sometimes get a little tight in those situations. Jacob Wilkins has a sports bite half past there on Mad Dog Unleashed.
Mad Dog.